Salutations everybody, it is Matty here today, sitting down for my review of Overwatch 2. This is one of many on the way this October, so if you are interested in that stuff, keep your eyes peeled on the sub boxes. Many day and date reviews are heading your way. But we start things off this month with a really perplexing video game. Overwatch 1 in 2016 was easily, by a country mile, my game of the year. I think the first Overwatch in its launch state and as it progressed in that first year or two was one of the best multiplayer experiences of all time. You're free to disagree with that, but for me, the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours I threw at that game was unlike anything I've experienced in the last generation when it comes to multiplayer. There was a hook there, and the hero shooter buzz was taking me over. I loved the first Overwatch, so I was keen to see what Overwatch 2 was. But even as someone who has their ears to the ground in this industry, I live, eat, sleep, breathe, bleed, barf, poop, whatever, video games. And I had a confusing time figuring out what exactly Overwatch 2 is and what separates it from Overwatch 1. Between mixed messaging of we're going to charge for it, now it's actually free to play, or we're actually going to overwrite Overwatch 1 even though we said we weren't going to. There were just so many messages going around. You could tell Activision Blizzard was just trying to figure things out on the fly. Eventually, outside of my coverage on Defining Duke, I kind of just unplugged and went, all right, I'll see you when the game's out. It's free to play. I'll play it myself and see truly what the difference is. As we got closer to launch, I noticed that there was not much hype being generated by the Overwatch accounts, by Activision Blizzard themselves. It felt as if this was all supposed to fly low under the radar until the rest of the content was ready. That's the feeling I was getting, and it was exactly right. However, I can't sit here and go, well, Overwatch 2 is bad, because it's not. Far from it. So it's a very weird position to be in with this game review where, as a sequel, Overwatch 2 absolutely is a failure in my eyes, but as a video game, Overwatch 2 is a lot of fun. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you're new here, you're into video game reviews, you're in the right place, consider subscribing. Let's talk about Overwatch 2, getting into everything that is new here. So before I go any further, just know that I haven't played Overwatch 1 in a couple of years now. Once they started switching up the meta a lot, it was very tank heavy. It pushed me away from the game. I ended up just dropping it, moving on to other stuff, but I cherished my time there. The reason I say all of that is just in case I do mention something that may not be new to you, it was new to me, and I think that is going to be an important talking point as we go through this review, as many people are hopping in, looking and thinking, is Overwatch 2 worth my time? Because it's not worth money, but is it worth my time, which is a currency of equal importance. So, number one, new UI. I like the presentation here. It's very simple. You know, I like how the hero portraits are displayed. They're not these long banners anymore. They're more like tiles when you're selecting them. But also when you're looking at the hero details, I think they pop a little bit more. It's a lot more legible. These are little things that maybe aren't tangible for people. You don't put your hands on the features, on the mechanics, but they read a lot easier, which allows you to find the data you're looking for quicker. Same thing with the scoreboard. When I'm looking at my damage, my healing, my mitigation, so on and so forth, it's easy to find that, see how my teammates are doing. Not that it was difficult in the past, just I feel they compressed, squeezed things in more towards the center of the screen when I'm looking for data, so I don't have to look all over to find out what I need. Otherwise, in the terms of new visuals, you'll notice some of the maps have changed the time of day, the ones that existed in Overwatch 1 and were brought forward here. So instead of being daytime, it's the evening now. The new times of day aren't replacements for the base maps. It does mean that you'll just have multiple maps with multiple times of day. Blizzard's talked a bit about adding weather patterns to some of these maps, and I think that would be cool, but that's where we start to step into the territory of playing a game based off a promise a corporation made to us, and I'm sorry, but I can't co-sign that mentality. What we're kind of left with here, starting with these maps, is that sneaky feeling of this feels more like a fresh coat of paint rather than a true sequel. Same thing goes for the support of this game. Right now you have 3 new heroes, couple new maps, a new mode, but Blizzard is promising more maps, more modes, more heroes than ever before. And if you saw the tail end of support for Overwatch 1, you know they weren't really delivering the goods during that stretch of time. Now, I imagine with a reinvigorated player base, a new push for a sequel, they will deliver some of the goods, but we start to step into the territory again of playing a game based off promises made rather than what the product is now and today. This is where the game, again, it fails as a sequel because this is a laughable effort. Same thing with some of the Overwatch 2 skins. For example, I use Pharah a lot. I love this attack hero, and when I looked at her Overwatch 1 skin, I clicked on Overwatch 2, I had to look and go, what's the difference? Some of them are different. Cassidy has a little bit more of a thicker beard. Soldier 76 looks a little older, even though he already had gray hair. Like, you can see some differences, but in some cases across this game, they're pretty minor. It does offer a battle pass because this is how the game is going to make its bread. Instead of using loot boxes, you now have the battle pass with tiered rewards, so you can earn everything in the game instead of paying an arm and a leg and playing a game of chance. As someone who threw, and I'll admit it, I'll call the microtransaction alert on myself. I never indulge in this stuff, but I had that Overwatch craze, and yeah, every event, Halloween and Christmas, Thanksgiving, any events that they did for any holidays, the summer games, threw money, more money. I wanted the cosmetics. I wanted them all because it gave you new voice lines, all that stuff. So to know that you could just earn them if you play the game instead of playing the game of chance, I kind of like. I think this is better, comparatively speaking, to the way you earn stuff in the past. And the way you earn stuff in the past, it made it impossible to get everything unless you spent absurd amounts of money or grinded the game even more. Now, speaking on the long term, I don't know how these battle passes will shake out in the terms of progression, but what I will say is this is very premium heavy. It was like every couple of levels, I'd get one small thing as a free user. But yes, if you pay for the premium battle pass, every tier, you're going to be unlocking something. And so the game does really push you towards that direction of you got to at least pay every season for the new battle pass and then play the game. I know it's not the most user-friendly approach, but it's a free-to-play game, so I have to look at it that way. Y'all know my thoughts. Just sell it to me for 60 bucks, make all these great unlockables, and let's have a good old time here in the multiplayer game known as Overwatch. But that's just, unfortunately, not how the industry functions. So these are some of the new systems that are in place. You'll be getting challenges, and as you complete those, you'll get battle pass experience, and that'll move along your battle pass ranking. Now, one thing that has also changed is if you are a new player, and even though I'm not, I played from this perspective here on a brand new account to see what that experience was like, to kind of replicate what some of you may be getting into. You will start off with a batch of free heroes, and as you go through the game and complete challenges and level up, you will unlock more heroes to use. I actually prefer it this way because Overwatch has a staggering amount of heroes. I come from a MOBA background to some extent, so there are tons and tons and tons and tons of champions to use, and I think that open freeform select who you want nature is great, but at the same time, I do like how games such as League create a slow, steady progression that forces you to learn a character, learn the game more importantly. The same thing is set up this way with quick play to competitive play. You have to win a ton of matches to unlock competitive play, and this means that the people you're going to play with aren't going to completely sink your ship all the time, which, again, as someone who plays these games and tries to get a little competitive with it, like, I like that type of stuff. So I'm not really against this new progression system, but of course, again, I do sit in the ballpark as someone who would have just liked to have paid money for the game like I did with Overwatch 1 and just had everything there and got rid of the loot boxes and had an actual progression system here. Again, unfortunately, that is not the case. This is the systemic setup. That is a big focal point. While it may not be the most enticing thing to talk about in a review, we'll get into the gameplay now. It's important you know where they expect you to spend money and how that affects the progression, because that's what you're playing for outside of just the dynamic fun that these matches offer. So it's now a 5v5 game instead of 6v6. To me, the chaos is still all the same. I enjoy how the meta is balancing out a lot. I'm seeing tons of different team comps. I'm seeing in quick play, at least when I play, I know they've switched it to just one tank. And I'm liking, based off how they've rebalanced some of these characters, where I haven't used Orisa in a while, but now she's got this javelin. She can throw the javelin. She's a bit more of a DPS tank, which was a cool change of pace. So it feels like there's more wrinkles in the roles where people can form these unique teams and approach things a little differently. So overall, 5v5 doesn't have me put off, and I gotta shout out the new mode, Push. Push is a really cool mode that functions like a tug of war. Now, unfortunately, I had it only available in the arcade mode, so it wasn't the best test in the terms of highly competitive play. People were still trying, but when it comes to Push, what happens is you have this robot, and as you get near it, he pushes this object along the map. And if he gets far enough, he'll have these checkpoints, if you will, that'll move your spawn up if he's deep enough in the enemy zone. And this means that you can continue your push. It's a game completely about momentum as you see it swinging back and forth, because what happens is it's not moving the payload like in Overwatch 1 where it slowly moves along no matter what. Once he's covered a certain amount of ground, let's say the enemy moves him back to the halfway point, when the bot is moving back in your favor, he's sprinting. He's moving to where he was last time. And to me, I like that because it felt you were never out of the game. This brought back those feelings of those intense payload matches where everyone's sitting on the objective fighting around, you're waiting for the clutch ult, you're trying to hang on for your dear life. But again, because the objective moves so fast, we didn't win it, but we had this one time where there was 10 seconds on the clock and we're just trying to push it a couple meters further and the robot's sprinting towards the objective. We're thinking like, oh man, we actually have a chance here. The clock starts ticking down. We managed to get there in time. We ended up losing, but it was that cool moment of knowing you had a chance. So Push, while it is familiar, it is a really fun game mode. But familiar is the name of the game here. Outside of the couple of new heroes that we'll talk about in a second, everything here felt like just a big update to Overwatch. And I know that's how the community has described it. I'm not going to sit here and act like I don't understand what the community is saying, but the name of the game, the way it was marketed is this is an Overwatch sequel. To have one new mode, a handful of new maps, 3 heroes, some new UI, and some new ways to spend money doesn't spell out sequel to me. Again, Overwatch is fantastic, and Overwatch 2 definitely gave me that fever where I'm kind of jonesing to get back in there. Of course, I have a bunch of games to review, so I don't know how often I'll get in there, but the fact that I want to is a good sign. But it's because of that familiar fun, and that's not necessarily a problem. That's kind of the point of the sequel, right? Is to just have the things that work for you again, but then you build on top of it. And a lot of things that would resemble building on top of it won't be here until 2023. You see, a lot of us who played Overwatch at launch wanted to get into a story mode of some kind. And a lot of the storytelling for Overwatch was out of the game. You would read comics, watch the short films that Blizzard would put out, the animated films that Blizzard would put out, and you'd piece the universe together. And it was a lot of fun to do that, of course. But as time went on, you started to hear more voice lines in the in-game world. There are new ones here in Overwatch 2, so you can hear characters interacting and slowly put the universe together in its own unique way. But that all called for a story of some kind. And they have said they're going to deliver that, but that is not coming until 2023. So this game feels like it's been cut in half, delivered to us. They're, as Joe Staten would say about Halo Infinite, landing the plane. Here's the free-to-play multiplayer component, but the story is going to come later. And since the story is defined more as a PvE mode, as Blizzard goes on and on with their marketing campaign where they started saying it's a full campaign and now they're saying it's just PvE, I can't say my hopes are high for it, but at least that would have been the new wrinkle. Because right now with Overwatch 2, it's familiar, it's fun, but it's familiar. And I think the things that would have made it a true sequel that built on top of the impressive framework would have been fantastic. Now, of course, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the new heroes. There's Junker Queen, there is Sojourn, or Sojourn? I'm gonna say Sojourn, that sounds right. And then there is Kiriko. So each of these represent the roles in the game. You have a new attacker, you have a new tank, and you have a new healer. Again, I think the best compliment I can give the current balance on Overwatch 2 is the wrinkles they've given these heroes. Junker Queen is awesome because she plays, again, like a DPS, but she has these tank roles within her. So she can buff everyone around her with movement speed and additional health and give herself a quick panic button, if you will, if things start to get too hot. But also, she has a shotgun and a knife that she can throw. If you keep it in the enemy, it'll do damage over time. If you click it again, it'll pull them in a little bit. Not like Roadhog pull in, but it'll pull them in a little bit so you can throw someone's aim off, so you can get them a little bit closer. You can blast them away with the pump action. So she has a little bit of Roadhog in her, a little bit of Orisa in her. She feels like her own character, though. And I really do like how they built this one out. Sojourn is a ton of fun as well because she has an assault rifle that does damage akin to Soldier 76, rapid fire, but then she has a precision shot option where as you're shooting, as you're hitting enemies, you're building up this meter, and then once it's built up all the way, if you shoot and you hit an enemy, you're doing damage. And so it's this back and forth of fast-paced fire, getting in their face. She doesn't have incredible range, but then when you get that sniper shot, it's like, I gotta make this one count. Boom. I love that. And of course, as someone who hasn't played for a while, it's nice to see a couple of new heroes in here like Moira, Ashe that I haven't laid my hands on. And that's where the kind of free-to-play, slow unlocking of all these characters does hurt you as someone who is familiar with the game, does have an account, but wanted to give that experience of, oh, I want to try this hero, but I can't. So there's no way to rent one out. I think some type of token system here would be great in this game too. I know there's the watch point pack, so you could technically buy them. But when it comes to Overwatch 2, my concluding thoughts are it's a really fun game. I do think it's worth your time downloading it, especially now that they removed the phone number requirement for certain accounts. That's nice. But I have to say, as a sequel, I think Overwatch 2 kind of fails. And I do think by 2023, the conversation will be different. But right now, it's hard to give it that glowing review because you know there's a big component missing, and that kind of is the epitome of modern gaming is we'll get it to you later. And I understand that, and there is benefits to that we can get the fun now and start playing the game now. But I just feel this game would have benefited in the terms of conversation a lot more if it didn't feel so familiar and there were more of those wrinkles, because then it would have uplifted the whole conversation of, oh, Overwatch is fun again. Maybe it was always fun, I don't know, but I dropped off it again when the meta got really sweaty and tank heavy. But oh, it's fun again. And now look, we got this single player component. We just need a little bit more. But I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Certainly I've talked long enough, so let me know what you're thinking about Overwatch 2 in the comments down below. Please do fire away. Other than that, follow me on Twitter, follow me on Instagram. Those links are in the description down below. And a big thank you to all the patrons, all the members who continue to support the hell out of the content here. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.